Hi there. We're on Through the Bible in 1 year. It is day 172. Today they have us reading 1 Kings 10 and 11. I'll jump over there. And we'll read it. The Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba heard about Solomon's fame connected with the name of Yahweh and came to test him with difficult questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very large entourage with camels bearing spices, gold in great abundance, and precious stones. She came to Solomon and spoke to him about everything that was on her mind. So Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too difficult for the king to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba observed all Solomon's wisdom, the palace he had built, the food at his table, his servants' residence, his attendant service, their attire, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he offered at the Lord's temple, it took her breath away. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your words and about your wisdom is true, but I didn't believe the reports until I came and saw it with my own eyes. Indeed, I was not even told half. Your wisdom and prosperity far exceed the report I heard. How happy are your men? How happy are these servants of yours, who always stand in your presence, hearing your wisdom. May Yahweh your God be praised. He delighted in you and put you on the throne of Israel because the Lord's eternal love for Israel. He has made you king to carry out justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 4.5 tons of gold. Holy cow. A great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did such a quantity of spices arrive as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. In addition, Hiram's fleet that carried gold from Ophir brought from Ophir a large quantity of almug wood and precious stones. The king made the almug wood into steps for the Lord's temple in the king's palace, and into lyres and harps for the singers. Never before had such almug wood come, and the like has not been seen again, even to this very day. King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba her every desire, whatever she asked, besides what he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she, along with her servants, returned to her own country. Wow. That must have been a nice visit, huh? The weight of gold that came to Solomon annually was 25 tons. Holy mackerel. Besides what came from merchants, traders, merchandise, and all the Arabian kings and governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 15 pounds of gold went into each shield. He made 300 small shields of hammered gold. About 4 tons of gold went into each shield. 4 pounds. The king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a large ivory throne and overlaid it with fine gold. The throne had 6 steps, and there was a rounded top and the back of the throne, armrests on either side of the seat, and 2 lions standing beside the armrest. 12 lions were standing there on the 6 steps, one at each end. Nothing like it had ever been made in any other kingdom. Well, that's interesting, because God said you shouldn't make graven images of anything living underground, above ground, in the sky, in the water. Just interesting to me. All of King Solomon's drinking cups were gold, and all the utensils of the house of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. There was no silver, since it was considered as nothing in Solomon's time. Wow. For the king had ships of Tarshish at sea with Hiram's fleet, and once every 3 years the ships of Tarshish would arrive bearing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Apes and peacocks. Wow. King Solomon surpassed all the kings in the world in riches and in wisdom. The whole world wanted an audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom that God had put in his heart. Every man would bring his annual tribute items of silver, gold, clothing, weapons, spices, and horses and mules. Solomon accumulated 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, and stationed them in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedar as abundant as sycamore in the Judean foothills. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and Kue. The king's traders brought them from Kue at the going price. A chariot was imported from Egypt for 15 pounds of silver, and a horse for about 4 pounds. In the same way, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and to the kings of Aram through their agents. There you go. Solomon's unfaithfulness to God. King Solomon loved many foreign women in addition to Pharaoh's daughter. Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonite, Hittite women from the nations that the Lord had told the Israelites about. Do not intermarry with them, and they must not intermarry with you, because they will turn you away from me to their gods. Solomon was deeply attached to these women and loved them. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 concubines, and they turned his heart away from the Lord. 1,000 women. Man, I can't even imagine. When Solomon was old, his wife seduced him to follow other gods. He was not completely devoted to Yahweh, his God, and his father David had been. Solomon followed Ashereth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the detestable light of the Ammonites. Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight, and unlike his father David, he did not completely follow Yahweh. Yeah, see, we knew this was coming. At that time, Solomon built a high place at Chemosh, for Chemosh, the detestable idol of Moab, from Milcom, the detestable light of the Amalekites on the hill across from Jerusalem. He did the same for all his foreign wives who were burning incense and offering sacrifices to their gods. The Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from Yahweh, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. He had commanded him about this, so that he would not follow other gods, but Solomon did not do what the Lord had commanded. Then the Lord said to Solomon, since you have done this and did not keep my covenant and my statutes which I commanded you, I will tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. However, I will not do it during your lifetime because of your father David. I will tear it out of your son's hand. You will not tear the entire kingdom away from him. I will give one tribe to your son because of my servant David and because of Jerusalem that I choose. Solomon's enemies. So the Lord raised up Hadad the Edomite as an enemy against Solomon. He was of the royal family of Edom. Earlier, when David was in Edom, Joab, the commander of the army, had gone to bury the dead and had struck down every male in Edom. For Joab and all Israel had remained there 6 months, until he had killed every male in Edom. Wow. Hadad fled to Egypt along with some Edomites from his father's servants. At the time Hadad was a small boy, Hadad and his men set out from Midian and went to Paran. They took men with them from Paran and went to Egypt. The Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave Hadad a house, ordered that he be given food and gave him land. Pharaoh liked Hadad so much that he gave him a wife, a sister of his own wife, Queen Tahpenes. Wow. And Tahpenes' sister gave birth to Hadad's son, Genubath. Tahpenes herself weaned him in Pharaoh's palace, and Genubath lived there along with Pharaoh's sons. When Hadad heard in Egypt that David rested with his fathers and that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me leave so I can go to my own country. But Pharaoh asked him, what do you lack here with me? For what do you want to go back to your own country? Nothing, he replied, but please let me leave. God raised up Rezon, son of Eliada, as an enemy against Solomon. Rezon had fled from his master Hazadar, king of Zobah, and gathered men to himself. He became captain of a raiding party when David killed the Zobaites. Man. He went to Damascus to live there and became king in Damascus. Rezon was Israel's enemy throughout Solomon's reign, adding to the trouble Hadad had caused. He ruled over Aram, but he loathed Israel. Still going on today, huh? Now Solomon's servant Jeroboam, son of Nebat, was an Ephraimite from Zeradah. His widowed mother's name was Zurah. Zerubbabel rebelled against Solomon, and this is the reason he rebelled against the king. Solomon had built the supporting terraces and repaired the opening on the wall in the city of his father David. Now the man of Jeroboam was capable, and Solomon noticed the young man because he was getting things done. So he appointed him over the entire labor force of the house of Joseph. During that time, the prophet Ahijah, the Shilonite, met Jeroboam on the road, and Jeroboam came out to Jerusalem. Now Ahijah had wrapped himself with a new cloak, and the two men were alone in the open field. Then Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he had on, tore it into 12 pieces, and said to Jeroboam, take 10 pieces for yourself. For this is what the Lord God of Israel says, I am about to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I will give you 10 tribes, but one tribe will remain his because of my servant David and because of Jerusalem, the city I chose out of all the tribes of Israel. For they have abandoned me. They have bowed the knee to Asheroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, to Shemesh, the god of Moab, and to Milcom, the god of the Ammonites. They have not walked in my ways to do what is right in my eyes and to carry out my statutes and my judgments as his father David did. However, I will not take the whole kingdom from his hand, but I will let him be ruler all the days of his life because of my servant David, whom I chose and who kept my commands and statutes. I will take 10 tribes of the kingdom from his son and give them to you. I will give 1 tribe to his son, so that my servant David will always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city I chose for myself to put my name there. I will appoint you, and you will reign as king over all you want, and you will be king over Israel. Who is this? Jeroboam. Okay. After that, if you obey all I command, walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight, in order to keep my statutes and my commands as my servant David did, I will be with you. I will build you a lasting dynasty, just as I built for David, and I will give you Israel. I will humble David's descendants because of their unfaithfulness, but not forever. Not forever. Baboons. Therefore Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, where he remained until Solomon's death. Solomon's death. The rest of the servants of Solomon's reign, along with all his accomplishments and his wisdom, are written in the book of Solomon's events. The length of Solomon's reign in Jerusalem over all Israel totaled 40 years. Solomon rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of his father David. His son Rehoboam became king in his place. So there you have it. Oh look, 2 Chronicles 9. I didn't know there was something. Oh, we're not gonna. Okay, this says the same thing, so I'm just gonna skip this part. It's the same story in another book. Okay, a little different, but you know, you can read 2 Chronicles 9 if you want to, because it's, like I said, it's the same story. You know, the numbers are usually different, but you know, 25 tons. It's just same exact story all over again. That's all Kings War versus Resume. See, now this doesn't say. Sarah Joshua. No. This doesn't say about his. You know, just talks about his wealth. It doesn't talk about him going against all this stuff. Huh. Interesting. So there you have it. That's that's day 172. We'll continue this. So what are we doing tomorrow here? Oh, Proverbs 30 and 31. Okay. And that's just, and these aren't very long. Proverbs 30 and 31. Tomorrow will be a good short Friday. So, but there you have it. That's day 172. And the end of Solomon. He was the wisest man that ever lived. Was led astray. Okay. I wonder when he wrote Ecclesiastes and talked about, that we read yesterday, and talked about how horrible everything is. I had no idea he had 1,000 women. I mean, it's enough, you know, to have one good wife. And I can't imagine 700 wives and 300 concubines. I mean, how would you split your time between them? This just doesn't make any sense to me. But he did. So there you go. That's the end of Solomon. And Rehoboam's now. And we know that Israel will be split up, as it still is today. And we knew just from how things are today that Israel would not stand forever. If they would have followed God, they would have stood forever, right? And they would have run the whole world by now. But they don't. So there you have it. We'll do this again tomorrow. But until, give us a like if you think about it. Catch up on anything you may have missed. And read 2 Chronicles 9 if you want to get the whole story in different perspective. So, but till tomorrow, we'll do it again. See you later.